Right. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to call this back to order. This is the continuation of the Executive Transition Committee, and we are taking some more time to talk through next steps and learn from Ashley and her team at W Talent, what she needs from us and what we need to do next. And so, Jordan, is she or her team already in the meeting?
They are.
All right. Welcome, Ashley. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Oh, great. Welcome.
Thank you. Great to see you.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
So how would you like to proceed?
Okay, well, on my agenda, I thought I would show you how the behavioral assessment and the job assessment works so that you're all prepared to go through that process. There's two components, two assessments or surveys, if you will. One's a behavioral assessment related to your own behaviors, and then the second piece is a job survey related to your expectations for the job. So I thought I would share my screen and go through both just so you know what to expect going into those. And then I wanted to switch gears, and we have a long list of questions related to us putting together the job profile so that we can find the right fit. We'll talk about interview process on your end and what we want that to be structured like and look like. And then from there, just a go forward plan on next steps. But is there anything else you'd like to get out of today's meeting?
That sounds great. I guess I'll ask maybe Roger if you could tilt that microphone down just so it's not pointing at the speakers, and maybe Sylvia, if you could do that too, that'd be great. No, that sounds good. And I don't believe we've sent the existing, job kind of profile that was kind of adopted from some old content and then updated. That's going to be probably very separate from what we're talking about right now, but I will email that over so you can see a copy of it.
Excellent. Thank you. Great. Well, in that case, let's get started. I'm going to find the right screen here and show you the predictive index behavioral assessment. Can you see this okay?
Yes.
Excellent. So we do ask the stakeholders in the process to complete a behavioral assessment related to their own natural behavioral style. The reason being is that our tools allow us to be able to paint a full picture, if you will, of all the behaviors currently on the team and the construct of the current team, so that as we're looking at candidates to bring in, we can predict how they might show up and interact with that team and help you make an educated and informed decision based on those dynamics as well. Make sense?
Yes.
Perfect. So this assessment itself is only 2 questions. It's about 6 minutes on average, they say, to complete. So I'm just going to go through it real quick so you know what to expect on your end when you go to complete this, and you will receive this survey and the job survey in your inboxes also likely today, I believe. So we'll talk about that as next steps. Pretty simple and straightforward here. You fill out first name, last name, email address, continue. And then there are some instructions right here to begin, just so you know what you're getting into, but I'll show you what this looks like on the back end. Here's the first question. So please read the list of words and check those that you feel best describe you are expected to act by others. So this question really has to do with how you feel like you're adapting or how others expect you to behave, and answer these in your professional world, in your professional setting. So you simply click through some of these here, and you do have to select at least 6. And less than 81. There's 86 adjectives total. So it will flag you if you are under or over. You click continue. And then this one's just simply how you believe yourself to naturally behave. So how would you describe yourself in professional settings? So you go through, again, answer what you feel calls out for you, and you click submit. This is the same assessment that the candidates will go through. So I thought it would be insightful also from that perspective to be able to see what they're going to experience. Once that is completed, the assessment taker will receive the results to their email inbox with a PDF of their profile type and a nice report that just outlines their natural styles and natural behaviors. Any questions on this assessment piece?
No,
No.
can't wait to try it.
Can't wait to see your results, Joe.
I'm a little scared, actually.
Don't be alarmed. There's no wrong answer. So,
Close.
and then this is the job assessment or job survey, as I like to call it. Assessment can be a little scary word, but it's just simply a survey going through these questions. There's instructions right here. There's 3 pages of these different scenarios to answer through for the behavioral piece to this survey. And then there are a series of pages for the cognitive piece as well. This typically takes our clients on average 10 to 15 minutes to complete. So I just suggest that you set aside the time to get through all of it in the same take, if you could possibly. You go through and simply check off these boxes. So for example, checking the details of work for accuracy. And you would think about this position and the daily objectives of this role and the day-to-day construct and just simply go through and answer the ones you feel best. There's no right or wrong, but again, it's simply your opinion of the role, knowing the role best, which is why we wanted to boil down the group of stakeholders to the ones that would know this role throughout to really get that bullseye target for the behavioral and cog.
Great.
So working through here, I'm just going to continue. There's a series of questions again on these 3 pages for the behaviors. You click on through answering what you think the closest match to your expectations and duties of the role. You move on to the cognitive piece. And so there's also information right here about instructions. And then you come down and here's the question. So for example, memorization, remembering information. Is this role required to have just basic memorization skills? So frequently memorizing a few pieces of information or data. Intermediate, so frequently memorizing multiple details and or facts. Or advanced, frequently memorizing large amounts of information. Or none. Some of these elements might not apply to the role. So simply click none. I'm just going to click through so you can see what this looks like. But you're answering for these things here on the left. So if this role requires basic, intermediate, advanced, or not applicable. You click through here, filling these out. You do have to fill out each one. Otherwise, it will also flag. So getting through, there's 5 pages to these. So just FYI there, clicking through. And they're pretty straightforward. But again, if you may not know one, I would just use your best judgment. We're going to look at the results based on each stakeholder's feedback as a group. So we will be able to see the different nuances that each person responded with, and we will have a full conversation to talk through those adaptations to make sure we all get that group alignment on the final benchmarks moving forward for the role. My team and I will then use those benchmarks to measure each candidate going through our process. This software, Predictive Index, actually gives automatic match scores through 10, 10 being the closest match to the targets we set on the onset of this kickoff. And then from there, you will see the match scores in our candidate profile sheets, again, through 10 being the closest match. So you'll see that the software does that for us. So again, we're not using our gut or our bias to decide who's the closest match or not. We're setting this on the front end so that we can really see. Here's the behavioral target. I'm going to zoom in. And I just guessed, clicked random ones, but these orange boxes would essentially be the target for what I just completed. And then the cognitive target is here. So we'll go through that process. This system also creates a nice job report so that we each have this. It's in PDF version that we will send to you after our kickoff call when we go through this process. It will tell the top 3 profile types that we'll be targeting out of the 17 different types of behavioral profiles that Predictive Index offers. This PDF will tell what they will be like, what they will need out of this position, what they'll like hearing in the process, noteworthy behaviors of this person, and then a nice summary. Oftentimes we pull in some of these soft skills that it describes into the job description, because when we want someone to read the job description, we want them to think, oh yes, that sounds like me. I think this could actually be a good fit. And so we put in some of those elements as well. So any questions on the assessment pieces?
Any questions? I have one question.
All right.
My question was, so I've never heard of Predictive Index. I've heard of other ones. in a lot of the research and discussions and kind of getting into this larger process is the first time I did hear about predictive index. Is there any just additional information you want to add about it, or how old is it, or how mature is it, or how is it used by a lot of people? Is it, I don't know, anything like that?
Yeah, good question. So I did my research when I was looking for an assessment vendor of choice for us to use in our vetting process almost 8 years ago. And so I've studied a lot of different tools. I've also majored in psychology and have had a good foundation of tools and what I should be looking for. I'm always looking for something valid, reliable, and fair, equitable. So those three things were really at the forefront, aside from length of time to complete the assessment, because working with all executive level candidates, gainfully employed, really good at what they do in most cases, they don't want to sit through hours of interviews. So ultimately, I landed on predictive index for several reasons. One of which is it's brief to take for the assessment taker. Again, 6 minutes on average for the behavioral, 12 minutes timed for cognitive. So under 20 minutes, we get 2 robust data points right out of the gate, which is really simple, straightforward for the candidate as well. I also selected it because it does have the rigor of history behind it. It was actually created in the mid 1900s in the military to decide who should be carrying weapons and who should not. And a gentleman named Arnold, who went to Harvard, who was in the military prior, kind of came up with these constructs and then went to Harvard and really designed predictive index for what it is today. It's had millions of dollars of investments in the past 20 years and has really become more of a robust SaaS product. So it is a software offering. I love that piece because all of our candidates can be housed right in this software. And it's a really nice, streamlined, easy way for all of my team to access this as well. Another reason I selected it is from an equity perspective. It's offered in over 80 languages, including Braille, actually. And then it's also offered in paper format. So if someone doesn't have access to technology, I have a lot of manufacturing clients per se who use this, and sometimes they're having people take it on site, just paper format. So that's another good offering it has as well. And I could go on, but I think it's one of the best tools that's also EEOC compliant, where a lot of the assessment tools on the market don't allow for a benchmarking process, so that you're just administering the assessments in your pre-hire process, but still using your gut, because again, we're all drawn to people similarly wired to us. And so in those cases, having a benchmark was really important to me as well for hiring. So good question.
Great info. Yeah.
Any other questions on this piece before I dive into ours?
No.
All right, great.
Excellent. All right, let me pull up our intake form here. And we'll dive in, and then I'll open it up probably to Matt and Justin if they have any additional questions, but I'll go through my list here. So let's see. We talked a little bit, Joe, about reports. It sounds like 1,300 employees, 800 to 900 being full-time. Does this position have about 20 to 30 direct reports, or how many direct does this position have?
I don't have that number offhand, but it is probably 20 to 30 that are direct.
Okay.
Yeah. And if not,
I think it's 14 departments.
Yeah.
Plus some additional.
1, 2, yeah. And there's also, even if there's not direct report from certain departments like treasurer or clerk,
Right.
they do interact directly.
Right.
Yeah. So that probably adds to the number a little bit.
And legal.
Right. So yes.
A good 20.
Yep.
20 to 30.
Excellent. All right. And then we talked a little bit about day-to-day responsibilities, but what does maybe an average day in the life of this role look like?
That's a great question. Maybe we should pull in Mr. Epperson. Do you want to take a crack at that?
A day in the life of the administrator?
Yeah.
So typically he's going to be doing, or he or she is going to be doing, going to a lot of meetings with the different department heads, getting, all of the direct reports are going to be basically updating the administrator with kind of the monthly activities of their department. There's probably a good 10 or 15 different boards that Ottawa County is a member of, that the administrator represents the county on the boards. And then there's a few internal boards that the administrator basically runs. So a lot of it is definitely board work. A lot of it is definitely supervising the different departments and kind of allocating the different chain of commands. The administrator also has employees in administration. I want to say 6, all of them being direct reports to the administrator as well, kind of handing basically as a support role to he or she. So, yeah, I mean, do you have any like direct questions, or it's such a large role. I mean, to summarize it all in one would be.
It is. That helps. Another thing I thought of is there are some, I don't know what you would call like the road commission, right? It's not a department, but it is within, the county operations, if you will. It has its own road commission board, and they operate pretty much independently, but then there's a lot of coordination. So there's road commission, updates and meetings, and you do have to look at budget and things like that.
Right, and
Okay.
the administrator is basically the liaison between the elected Board of Commissioners and anybody who needs to cooperate with them or get in contact with them as well.
Okay, excellent.
There's probably a lot we don't know, and that's probably a good thing. There's a lot of internal day-to-day that we don't deal with. And that's by design. That is part of the role.
And then also, they would be the external face to the community too, on behalf of the county. So communications, out to the community.
Okay.
And also helping to lead the strategic plan for the county, the direction that we are in and where we're headed. And
Okay.
then that involves talking with the direct reports as well as other stakeholders and the Board of Commissioners.
Okay. Are there a lot of external events they're attending as well that are beyond just set office hours traditionally?
I would say so. There's well over 20 different varying public bodies and, statutory elected and appointed type of boards and committees. Things like, we've got a housing commission, we've got a jury board, land bank authority. A lot of these organizations, tend to partner with not-for-profit entities too. And so there's going to be, annual meetings, there's going to be fundraiser type events, there's going to be ribbon cuttings, there's going to be, collaborative events, so yeah, there's just a lot.
Yeah, excellent. That paints a good picture.
Couple other things that have been mentioned quite a few times is there are regular meetings with department heads, so those are scheduled ahead of time, and I think they're monthly, probably at least. And then there's, but our departments in a big way, largely operate as independent business units. They have a director, they have a mission, and then they go after it and do the day-to-day. And so going back to the strategic planning and kind of organizational needs that the county has, while the day-to-day then and the business units are moving forward, we do need to increase, and there's been some discussion on this, increase the focus on the strategic plan. And I'll add a couple more small things. One thing that John Anderson has spoken about a few times is the county. He's seen counties grow. He's been in county government for 32 years, something like that. And in his experience, he's seen counties that grow and grow and grow, kind of like Ottawa County is growing, and eventually their expenditures start to outpace new revenues. And so in his assessment is that we are going in that same direction and need to take now would be the time to take a more proactive kind of focus on how to plan for the future to make sure that there aren't difficulties in the next 5 years or 10 years as we continue to grow and the growth and expenditures outstrip the revenue growth.
Good point. Thank you for that.
I think another one is just knowledge of grants is a big focus. I think that we would like to see in an administrator of knowing the knowledge of working with them and all that goes with it. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, my next question kind of segues into that. Are there current gaps or thinking future focused? What type of great experience bringing to the table in certain specialty areas might be beneficial or valuable going forward? Housing, I know, probably is up there on the list.
Yeah, we kind of talked about this internally with regard to some of that county profile. As you heard, Ottawa County is the fastest growing, and we have these competing interests that are a result of that growth and basically demand for the land. Things like transportation, coordination, land use. So while the county doesn't directly manage land use, we do have to plan for the delivery of service. And
And the local units are then managing that land use.
you know,
Yeah, but there needs to be that coordination.
yeah, and so a lot of the infrastructure we have, you know, for example, the influx of like blueberries from South America has really impacted Ottawa County from the standpoint of how valuable is the land for blueberries? Is it for produce or is it potential for, suburban housing? So that's a major consideration. While that is a sort of local township kind of land use ordinance kind of planning thing, the ramifications of growth really do affect the county. All the services that we deliver. And so at the same time, we do value, we have actually it was just yesterday, our planning and policy and finance administration, we had ag preservation. We preserved a property for, the purchase of development rights to preserve agricultural lands. So that is a county initiative. So it's sort of like this layer cake of weaving in and out of, the ramifications of growth, the zoning and that's kind of a local thing, but, collectively we are kind of working together, managing, these challenges. And a lot of our township officials do represent their community on these countywide type initiatives, like the groundwater board. We're managing data that involves, taking measurement of how depth some of our wells are because, we're having instances at different times of the year where the aquifer, has a slow recharge rate. It's like a punch bowl when you have a lot more straws going into it, so development does impact water use. So, yeah, the administrator position doesn't necessarily have to be the boots on the ground in all of these situations, but they are very pivotal in the communications and coordination with, other units.
Absolutely.
Could I tag onto that a little bit?
Mhm.
I'd say, so I agree. And another way to say what Roger said at the end there is the administrator does not have to be the subject matter expert on all of the issues, but they do need to be someone who can ask good questions and take in a lot of information and make decisions. Someone who is proactive. And what I'm also hearing is data oriented, measurement oriented, and relationship oriented.
And a resource. They're
Hmm.
kind of like with all the different things they're involved in, information will flow up to them in terms of, maybe they're at a meeting of central dispatch and there may be, a fire chief from another local unit and an issue, crops up that, maybe he's heard something from somewhere else. She has, had conversations and so a lot of that is organic in nature, just being a part of these different, I guess, fingers of county influence.
Mhm.
Awesome. Thank you. That paints a
But
great picture. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, and one more thing to just add on to that, because the complexities and the amount of the work is really great. Is that, I don't know if we've mentioned, there is a deputy administrator role too. So coordinating well with a secondary person who helps to, bear that load of all those things that have to be done.
Okay. How long has that person been in place?
The current one?
Ben, when did Ben start?
He's been in, I think, 11 months
Okay.
currently.
Okay. Okay, great. We may get this question pop up, but are there any opportunities for advancement as our candidates are thinking futuristically about their own careers? How would you answer that?
That's a great question. Does anybody want to start with? I would love to answer that.
So if I understand what you're asking is this, so we have candidate pool looking for this role. So is this kind of like what type of opportunities could be a result of performing well in this role that might be available to them in the future?
Yeah, development in their own career, once they get into this role, prove themselves, what's kind of the next stepping stone or areas of opportunity for their career?
I think from the standpoint of, county administrators are a lot like city managers. They're kind of like that chief operating officer for a governmental unit. So I think a natural progression for a lot of successful managers throughout that time would be, moving on to a larger community, moving on to maybe, if it's a money type situation where, maybe they have career goals and, travel and, things outside of the career, opportunity of leading a larger community might, help advance some of those, I guess, personal goals that an individual might have. Um, and likewise, I think, you know, is in terms of executive search for large not-for-profit entities or even probably private sector to a degree, consulting, there may be opportunities for a person that's successful because it is a high-profile position. And, with it becomes, I guess, an element of the ability to manage large projects.
Mhm.
I can probably go on that. Looks like we all have.
Yeah.
I think for me, I think it would depend on the individual. I think I could see certain administrators wanting to be here for a time because they have challenges that they feel like they want to really be plugged into and be part of that solution seeking. So being someone that would be engaged to really bring Ottawa County to the next level. And I think there's certain individuals that thrive when they feel like they are contributing to that. And I think there's some that maybe feel like they get to a point where maybe the county is being highly successful in the areas that they were brought in to do. And then that might be when they are looking for another firm and maybe even another county to continue being challenged. But I think at the same time, it could be an individual. There could be other individuals that are find satisfaction in doing the day-to-day, but also doing some of the challenges, but they enjoy I don't know, that's just I think it depends on the individual greatly, but.
Yeah, and I would just add that I think we're the 7th largest county and the fastest growing county in Michigan. So I think the opportunities for, for growth and continuing to do new things are pretty great here in Ottawa for those reasons. Our prior, or we had an early administrator who now is at Kent County, and he was here for a very long time. And so for him, then he naturally went to a larger county, which, so there's only 6 larger counties in the state of Michigan if they want to stay in this same line of work. But I think Ottawa will continue to be growing and changing, and we can do some pretty exciting things here. So hopefully, at least for the near future, it should remain a fairly challenging and, fulfilling position.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay, my turn.
Yes.
I would echo the challenging part. I do think that there's going to be some really fun, if you like challenges, there's going to be some really fun challenges in Ottawa, because with growth comes challenge. I'd also say that if someone is looking for, or already is in the area and has, deep roots in Western Michigan and wants to stay here, there is an excellent opportunity for a long-term role. And then that can bring a lot of meaning to someone as they build relationships, or maybe they already have relationships and they continue to build on them. It can be very fulfilling, while also challenging. I have 2 other things. One would be there actually is a risk that you could become comfortable in a role like this, and you could begin to simply coast and allow all of the departments and business units and bureaucracy around you carry the load while you, let's say, go out and golf or whatever. And so that actually is a risk of a position like this, because it is a coordinator role, and it is in some ways, it is what you make it. And I know none of us want to see that, but it's worth saying. The other thing, the last comment I have on this is, and I'll probably say this several more times as we're talking, Ottawa County's budget has grown approximately $100 million in, I believe, the last 8 years. So if we're going from and I'm approximating, but if we're going from approximately 200 million to 300 million over the last 8 years, we don't know what that's going to look like in another 5 to 8 years, or 10 or 12. We may continue to see continued growth like that. And that is going to take, it's going to be very different to manage a county that's at 150 or 200 million and a county that's 500 million.
Excellent. Thank you. I saw bachelor's degree is required, master's degree preferred. Is that correct?
I think the job description we put bachelor's required. I don't think it had anything on master's.
No, it did not.
I don't think that would probably be likely.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know any feedback on that?
Usually at this level, I do anticipate master's preferred. So I wanted to just double check there that it wasn't a hard requirement that I missed anywhere.
Nope.
Okay. So let's talk about industry experience. I'm curious, as we look at someone that seems business-minded, has the focus of data metrics to drive the county forward. What type of what would the perfect resume look like? Let's start there in your mind. Years of experience, places in which they've worked when it comes to industry size, time spent in government or ties to government, that kind of a thing. If you could expand on that, please.
Anybody want to start? I could speak for Gretchen. I like when you start, Roger. 'Cause
Okay,
You have a lot of
quite-
experience and, yeah.
I think, as it relates to experience, an individual is going to need to show, demonstrate relative experience in coordination of a multitude of internal and external organizations. So I think, maybe the not-for-profit entity might be something where, there, a lot of folks could gain a lot of experience in that collaboration, coordination. I think things like economic development, housing, and probably to some degree, sort of the social disciplines. I think that would have a lot of impact and a lot of experience, even potentially, law enforcement. So someone familiar with, sort of organizational operating procedures and policies, someone with some knowledge of carrying forward, maybe programs that are developed in response to a legislative mandate or, supporting, maybe it's a consulting agency, maybe, it's a myriad of things because the county has such a wide array of disciplines, really underneath the umbrella of, county governance. But a lot of those things are, sort of social disciplines and, collaborative, working together under some kind of guiding principles. So I think a person would need to have demonstrated an advanced responsibility in those areas.
Okay.
No, anybody?
Well, I would just say a good chunk of what the administrator does, at least during certain months of the year, is helping the county departments work through budget.
Mhm.
And so there's a fair amount of the budget process and then also just in general processes within the county. And so I think those are two areas where I think we've seen some weakness coming in. And just what we've observed and experienced is both making sure we have sound processes in place, sound contracts in place, and that falls under legal, but it's important, that the administrator be a part of, ensuring that that happens. So contracts, finances, processes. So I don't know, to me, somebody that, has a background in those areas, I think is really important.
Okay. What about for-profit work in their experience? Probably not the full scope always being in the for-profit world, but are we open to that tie-in?
I think so, because I kind of think perhaps sometimes in government, we're a little lax, in the process and the metrics and in the finance, because it's easy to coast in government. And whereas, in the corporate world, you have to be on the top of your game and you have to have excellent, process and performance in those other areas. And I think it's easy to not necessarily be on the top of your game in government. So I could see that as being an advantage coming from the private sector. If we're looking at someone from the private sector, I want to see that they have a heart and the personal skills, because I think that's really important to our people in our departments here. I think people in government tend to have a big heart for people. And so I think it's important to have some sort of a melding of those two things, you know, whether they've dabbled a little bit in the nonprofit world as well. And that could even just be personally. But yeah, I guess that's where I'm coming from.
Yes, okay.
My turn. I will speak for Gretchen for a moment because she had given me some specifics she wanted me to share, and this sounds like a good time.
Okay.
She, what she is looking for is someone who has demonstrated the deliverables of building a strategic plan, of then carrying out that strategic plan, looking at how that what was the delivery of the requirements, and so what goes along with that would be the ability to assess an organization or assess a part of an organization, create SMART goals, create measurable goals, and then hold the individuals in the organization accountable and set expectations to track and continue to build and improve the organization. That's a very team and community oriented process as you're leading it forward. And so I think what she would summarize is saying what she wants to see is someone who demonstrates and has demonstrated true leadership, whether it's in any industry, in any situation. I get to speak for her, so I'll say, I think whether it's business or if it's government, nonprofit, finance, whatever it is, looking at
Can I
that.
add on to that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think the leadership is, from my point of view, is also somebody that recognizes the amazing talent that is already within the organization and is able to use that as an asset. Being able to come in and quickly glean the talents of individuals and then bring them to that next level. And by being able to be a leader means to really take a step back and to see what we already have and then be able to assess where we're going and to bring a lot of voices together for the betterment of the county. So I think that would be a key piece. And it's someone who was someone that's successful with a strategic plan, which I very much agree with, is also somebody that along the way, people valued the leadership, again, talking into the interpersonal skills, so that people feel valued and appreciated and that they want to continue working here. So that would be an extra piece.
Yes, love that. It actually segues into my question. What leadership style do you feel like would work best for this role?
Do you want to give us maybe some background on what you're looking for as a response, like what you mean by that?
Sure. What type of style leadership? So examples might be, servant leadership is a big buzzword that we hear a lot, but a leader probably, to get the conversation rolling, I'm envisioning, we talked a little bit, Joe, someone pragmatic, level-headed, listens before responding, doesn't listen just to respond. But what are some of those other pieces? Anything else you want to add there? Otherwise, that's a good foundation too.
I think building on what Allison had talked about was the ability to be a cheerleader for Ottawa County as an organization and as a place. So I guess part of that is an empathy for, the different, I guess, talents and skill sets that are, needed to deploy, governmental service. So there's that. I don't think a strong command type, so when you pose that question, immediately I thought of something that would not be a good fit You know, we well love Captain America, but I don't know that that would be the type of personality trait that, in this role. So, yeah.
Great.
I think somebody who has very high expectations of him or herself, and also of others, yet people know that they're treated with fairness and dignity, and that if there needs to be hard conversations, that respect was already built, because you get respect if you give respect. So I would say that would make a good leader, as well as somebody who's not afraid to be firm when they need to be firm, that they are the leader representing the county underneath the board. And so there are times that they do need to have, I was trying to think of the self-confidence, like someone that has great self-confidence, but is also humble, yet humble at the same time.
Mhm.
Go
Should I go next?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I could talk about this for hours and hours. So I'll add three things and then maybe try to build into it a little bit. As far as the leadership style or type of person, the county needs somebody who will accept responsibility, someone who will lead courageously, and then someone who rejects passivity. So if you try to dig into those a little bit, we're looking for someone, we should be, in my opinion, looking for someone who is curious, someone who's not just going to be comfortable accepting information and just leaving it on the table, but someone who's proactive, a proactive collaborator, a question asker, someone who is in some ways, this goes to the confidence level, someone who is comfortable facing uncertainty and a certain level of risk. That goes along with being proactive and confident, but it also allows you to look at new ideas, allows you to question everything, challenge assumptions, try to look underneath, what is currently happening, in trying to be structured and systematic, but willing to help people improve and organizations. If you're looking for, that leadership, that courageous leadership, we need someone who is both adaptable but also decisive.
Able to think on the spot when needed.
Yeah, able to think. Yeah, and so I could keep going. You need aspects of team building and long-term focus. And I think probably in some ways, if we could find someone who's demonstrated the ability to be comfortable with failure, that's an important character trait. Because it means they're also willing to try new things. And as far as we've seen, historically, in many government operations, not Ottawa County, but in government in general, there is, like Commissioner Rhodey said, a stagnation, and we are growing, we are changing, we have challenges. We are not a county that has had 48,000 people for the last 25 years. So those are some of my thoughts.
Those are great.
So I would just add a couple things. I think it's important that, and that maybe this is what you're referring to with servant leadership, I'm not quite sure, but that we have somebody who kind of has the ability to lead, a team, or lead from working with other people, but yet balanced with the ability to just lead even if the team is resisting you. So whenever possible. I just think it's always great to have leaders who, can rally the troops, and we can all be moving forward together, but yet have that strength of character when you just simply have to lead.
I think a lot of that is about setting expectations.
Yeah,
Because you do not have to be authoritarian in your
Right.
leadership style to set expectations and then hold people accountable. You also don't have to be you don't have to be primarily a consensus builder or a democratic, leadership style to fulfill your mission.
right.
Those are aspects of leadership, but in what is, a great opportunity for someone who demonstrates strong, leadership, kind of, I see Ottawa County as the sky is the limit.
It is, and I think maybe what we're saying is we don't want extremes,
Mhm.
we need
I
to
neither
not
would
have
think so.
somebody who's extremely authoritarian or extremely, let's like kumbaya,
Yep.
we need well-developed leadership.
Mhm.
And then just a couple other, just a strong communicator would be another one.
Mhm.
And availability to those who are his direct reports and available to the board. And that's a key piece of being able to work well. So,
Yeah, and leading under pressure.
right.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay.
Hmm.
Just a few more questions here. Do you have a hard stop at 11:30, however?
I don't.
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Wrap up a couple additional questions and then we are going to have a phase 2. So at that time, I might have a couple more questions when we set the targets, but this is plenty of information to get us kicked off. So we're really excited. From last question on the experience component, $300 million budget, 1,300 employees. From an experience perspective of history of scope that this person has managed personally in their career, do you want the threshold to be they've had to manage a budget of 300 million plus, 1,300 employees plus, or what does that kind of feel or look like for you?
My quick answer is no.
I have the same.
I think the size isn't as important as maybe a demonstrated experience of working in a growing environment. I don't know really what that looks like, but so you can have a unique experience that may transcend just the size and budget of an organization. I don't really know how to define that specifically, but it to me it's not as important as the demonstrated um, person's ability to grow and adapt.
Okay.
If I try to, yeah, I agree. I think you could say certain, certain maybe budget size or management size may offset one potential candidate who hasn't been in such an actively growing organization, but vice versa, if you have somebody in a very, a growth heavy situation or a fast paced situation, then that might offset, the size of the organization.
Mhm.
So I'm not worried about trying to set a threshold at 300 million or 200 million or 150 million. I'm more interested in results and experience.
In my experience too, I think some smaller organizations require a broader knowledge of experience. The statement, "You wear many hats" in a small organization. I think that might be to a degree apropos in this situation where more than 14 different departments, different aspects of service delivery. So with that is, a widened array of all the various disciplines that are involved versus, if you're in a large organization and maybe you're a finance director over a, $500 million budget, maybe your world is strictly finance instead of, the social service element of a smaller organization.
Yeah, I don't think the setting a threshold is the importance, but I do think that will be a piece that may bring somebody to the forefront if they're meeting the other areas, is we're looking at people who apply. I do think it's really important that somebody has knowledge of working with large budgets. I think that's very important because that's a pretty key piece of their role. And then, so I do think that needs to be elevated towards the top. Having some, I don't have a certain amount of money, but in-depth knowledge of working with it and potentially different software and
The complexity of a larger budget.
Right.
So you could have smaller budgets that are still as complex or have a certain level of complexity. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
I agree.
I would agree with that.
And even just the complexity of the organization that they work for, like how many
It's true.
different people are they acting with, that kind of thing.
Mhm. I do think that could make someone shine to the top too, of how many direct reports have they had in the past and what does that look like and how
How-
many,
How variable are their direct reports? That'd be interesting
Yeah.
too.
Yep.
Have they managed various business units or have they, or whatever? Yeah.
Okay. On that topic, I know each department probably has its own specialty software, but are there any software requirements of knowledge for this position that would be nice to have coming into this role?
My quick answer is no on that. I mean, they're just brand new budget software and there's going to be
they're
new.
still working on?
Yeah, they're still working on that. There's new payroll software, but
I think the ability to adapt,
Right.
right? Because
Right. There's
Yeah.
definitely a,
Mhm.
technology savvy that would be needed.
yeah, and there's probably always an ongoing, we have a great IT department and they're proactive and all the departments are always looking at ways to optimize and they want to use great tools. They want to use good software and good tools. And if they ever can, that's a priority. So they're, at least to my knowledge, they're not trying to find the cheapest tool. They're working within their budgets. But we do have, my point is we have some pretty good software, so.
Great. Good to hear. Switching gears, are you able to send us information on the compensation package, including benefits information, 401k, vacation policy, retirement?
Yep.
Yes,
Yeah, I'll send an email about that right now.
great. Thank you. And then lastly here, I just want to touch base on interview process. Once they're vetted through our process and we send them to you for review, what would you like your interview process to look like? So number of rounds of interviews, type of interview, whether virtual, in person, who would be involved in each of those interview portions and what that would look like. Do you guys have an idea or you want to brainstorm and chat through it?
I don't have a specific idea.
I think I would like a little bit of time to develop that before we would answer your question.
Okay.
That's a good point. Push it to phase 2 almost and.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep.
Excellent. Matt, Justin, any additional questions for right now to get us kicked off? Otherwise, we can wrap up.
Actually, I think we got pretty much everything covered. The only potential additional question I would have is if there's any particular organizations, counties, cities that we should either target or maybe even avoid would be a more important question in regard to candidates.
Sorry, I was typing. Can you say that
Wants to
again?
know where we might think about targeting geographically speaking or potentially avoiding certain areas.
I guess my thought is just a wide net. I wouldn't want to use any sort of, bias against, community or part of the state or industry. Um,
Mhm.
Yeah, I would agree with a caveat. I fully agree. I think, anybody who wants to apply, great. I'm not concerned about where someone's coming from. I'm not concerned about that, in the least. I have been personally very public, whether it's here at the dais or with the news or anybody I talk to, is we have an immense amount of talent in West Michigan. And generally speaking, I would love to see people from West Michigan apply. But that is by no means to say like that's a requirement, because it isn't, it is not.
Also, while it's not a requirement to live in the county that you work, I know that is something that constituents have said over and over and over again, that they would love their administrator to live where they are
Mhm.
working.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yep, that's
So.
true. It's
Right.
not a requirement. A lot of people ask that, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. To piggyback on what Matt asked, are there any organizations, businesses where you have really close relationships where it'd be a conflict of interest for us to reach out?
Do you mean maybe like certain entities were contracted with directly, things like that?
Yes, any of those, or you can think about it and get back to us on that question.
Mhm.
I have a loaded one that
Okay.
isn't straightforward, but we just want to make sure we're being respectful
Yeah.
of your relationships as well.
That's a great question. Actually, Jordan, do you think you could follow up with John and Ben on that particular question?
Yeah, we could compile like a comprehensive list of all of the county's vendors, especially the bigger ones, because that's probably going to be where there's, management style people that would be looking for a county administrator job, and we can get that to the committee probably by the end of the day,
Okay.
if that works.
Yeah, yeah. And any commentary that they might have, is, we wouldn't necessarily want to exclude people either, but if there's awareness, Ashley, for your team, maybe that helps.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, does that help?
Yes, yeah, that sounds
Okay.
good.
Great.
Okay, I think for now we have enough information, and then we'll obviously do a phase 2. Any other questions for us on our end before we wrap up?
I'm just still thinking through the geographical one a little bit, just reflecting on conversation here at the table. If we're looking for somebody, I think the biggest thing is making sure that whoever is coming in, that they're not looking, if they're coming from outside of the West Michigan circle, that they're not seeking to make wherever they're coming from, taking that mindset and putting that into making Ottawa County into where they currently reside. Understanding that when you're committing to becoming an administrator here, that you are becoming part of us, part of the county here, right? And so I guess that would be my only caveat, is when you're exploring somebody that that might even happen more in the recesses of your mind. And I don't know that, do you know what I'm saying?
That is a good comment.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that our people, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
You're
if you-
good.
Okay, I think that our people they really love their county, and a lot of them, feel they have very strong historical roots here, and are they very much love that. They're passionate about our history and our roots, and they like their leaders to understand that and to want to just continue to develop that, cultivate it, and see it grow. And so I think that goes along with what Allison is saying. So I think they feel they're maybe even best understood by people, and they trust people from here better. Like I grew up in Kent County, and so and I've been here for like 25, 27 years, but there are differences even between Kent and Ottawa. And that doesn't mean that, you know, someone from Kent can't understand Ottawa, but it took me a long time to start to see those subtleties and really understand them. Unfortunately, like both counties have, you know, fairly similar deep roots. So I can see someone from Kent being able to, you know, get that. But it is interesting. I do think our people here really love their history
Mhm.
and really want to see their culture to continue to flourish.
I think it kind of goes hand in hand with when I was telling you about many constituents prefer an administrator that lives where he's working, he or she. I think that may be an inner reason why, because then they're fully committed in embracing the county for all it is. And that it's almost like that mindset that they're part of us.
Yeah, and certainly, again, that doesn't mean, you know, it couldn't be someone from outside of here.
Right.
But if they do come in, just having an understanding and a respect for, you know, for that aspect.
Well, and if I could get really kind of practical about it, you know, as we face challenges, you do have to understand the heritage and the people of the county. For example, we, not just us, but many people have issues with the rising costs in housing. We could have a very solution-oriented person come in and say, hey, why don't we just, you know, raise this 1,000 acres of farmland, right? Boom, how, you know, housing crisis solved. Well, that would be a, you know, a grave error in Ottawa County. So because we are very agriculturally rich and we are the most agriculturally diverse county in Michigan and maybe in the United States, possibly. So, you know, that's an economic driver for our entire county. Yes, we do have some large employers and there's some manufacturing and other things like that. But agriculture is huge. And it ties in with the heritage, it ties in with the farming community, et cetera.
I think if someone were to come in that is outside of this area, it's very doable, but it will be an additional thing that they will be needing to work through, kind of like if you go to a different country where you're immersing yourself in a new culture, they will have another obstacle that they're going to need to work through and be conscientious of. So.
Could I add one more thing I just thought of when you said that? Sorry.
You're good.
Maybe I shouldn't. No, I will. There is a big difference between east side and west side in Michigan. So for all you east siders out there, no, I'm just kidding. There is, there's that phrase that people use, West Michigan nice. You know, it is a thing. People around here are very, very nice and very, very kind and very loving. And then you have a cultural tension when sometimes when people don't initially understand that and are more direct and to the point, you know, and things like that. So just another, you know, example of kind of the different approaches, different cultures is there are some realities to that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, this is your culture you're describing, so you don't need to shy away from that. Each organization, and this happens to tie into where you live, and that's what it's representing. So it's our job to represent your culture fully so that if someone does give the buy-in to move forward in the process, they fully exhausted the opportunity to learn about the culture and they've opted in. So thank you for elaborating on that. It's very helpful. Anything else to add before we wrap up?
No, I'm all good.
Good too.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. We're very excited to partner on this. If you have any questions, reach out. We're going to get to work on our end, curating the initial pool of talent. And then let's touch base though on the application process and how that will tie into our process as well. But we can do that probably via email.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
All right, take care.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Afternoon.
Okay,
You too.
see ya. Okay, we don't have anything else unless the committee wants to continue any discussion or anything else, otherwise we can recess. At the call of the chair, I guess. Anything else, Raj or anybody?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right, then this motion to recess.
So moved.
Second?
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. We'll recess and reconvene soon. Thanks.